Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point, AFR Talk. Great to have you in the conversation with us. Let me do a couple of values issues. We'll get back to the phone calls here in just a moment. 888-589-8840, number to call. Just a couple of sort of palate cleansers before we get back into some serious stuff. Do you know who the highest paid employee last year was for the Bay Area Rapid Transit? This is BART. This is basically San Francisco, Oakland, BA. BART stands for Bay Area. I've ridden that many times myself. Highest paid employee in the BART system last year. You know how much work they did last year? Zero, not a zip, not one single solitary hour. And they were paid she was paid $330,000. If I'm California and these are my tax dollars at work, I'm not going to be happy about this. Didn't work a single day for BART. This is a public agency. Her name is Dorothy Duggar. She was basically fired, resigned under pressure in May of 2011, 2 years ago, and last year, 2012, she made $330,000. They kept her on the payroll for another 19 months. She cashed in 80 weeks of unused vacation time. She drew paychecks and full benefits. During that period where she wasn't working, the 19 months, she earned nearly 2 extra months of vacation, got management bonuses, medical insurance, boosted her pension benefits by more than $1,000 a month. And she finally began drawing on her pension in December, and she's getting now an annual pension of $181,000 a year, so bad that she had to be forced out. It's almost impossible to fire a public employee, but she was so bad that they kind of bounced her in May 2011. Her penalty is to live on $180,000 a year for the rest of her life. Now, you probably followed the concern about the NFL and the helmets and all of the brain trauma. And everybody, so all of America's parents, all the greenies, all the lefties say, hey, you got to go into soccer. Non-contact sport, none of that mean helmet bashing, head bashing. That's terrible. Blow out your knees, suffer brain trauma, brain concussions, won't be able to walk, won't be able to think again the rest of your life. Now, here is a report out indicating that soccer can do just as much damage to the brain because of all the heading that's done in soccer. That's when you hit the ball with your head. Let's see, utilizing advanced magnetic resonance imaging techniques, researchers from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City found that numerous repetitions of the soccer move known as heading are associated with adverse brain changes comparable to those found in patients with traumatic brain injury. They say in a game, a soccer player will hit the ball with his head an average of 6 to 12 times, but in practice, they could be hitting the ball up to 30 times. And they've got some sort of threshold. If you have headed the ball somewhere between 885 to 1,550 times a year, you have significantly lower trauma in the 3 areas of the temporal occipital white matter. But beyond that, if you had at least 1,800 heads a year, then you were liable to experience some significant brain trauma. You know, we had this petition going to the FCC. They're getting ready to loosen the standards on profanity and nudity, getting ready to let that in prime time while your kids are watching TV. Profanity, all the profanity you want, all the nudity you want, they're getting ready to let that happen. And we encourage you to write in. Almost 100,000 people wrote in, 100-1 against loosening the standards. American families do not want this garbage piped into their living rooms, especially when their kids are watching TV. But congressmen who are completely silent on it could care less about nudity, could care less about profanity on your screens. Now they're all up in arms, and some members of Congress, some former federal officials, and some broadcast lawyers are asking the Federal Communications Commission to pull the licenses of networks that cover the NFL. If any network, whether it's CBS or whether it's NBC or whether it's Fox, if they cover a Washington Redskins game and the announcers use the word Redskins on the air, they want them to be punished for racism. They want them to be punished by having their license yanked. They are arguing that the deliberate, repeated, and unnecessary use of the term Redskins serves the public interest. Two problems with this. Number one, more Native Americans want the Washington NFL franchise to keep that label than don't. The Native Americans, they like being associated with one of the storied franchises in the National Football League. This is elite whites imposing their own vision of political correctness on Native Americans. We know better than you do what's good for you. We, the white elites, we will tell you what is good for you. We will tell you what you want. We will tell you what you should want. And number two, why did the NFL franchise pick the Redskins to be their motto or their, I don't know what term you want to use, their symbol? Because of things like bravery, things like courage, things like charging into battle, things like going to war. I mean, that's why they picked that symbol. It's a positive thing. They're picking the characteristics of the Native American tribes that they think are worthy of emulation. So it's a compliment. It's not any kind of a racist slur. And then you might have heard about this. This was a guy over in Germany. He's a bank employee, and he was supposed to move 62.40 euros from the bank account of a retiree from one account to another. He fell asleep while he was making this transaction. Now, if you've ever done this, I've done this, where I'm typing and I fall asleep and my finger just kind of presses down on the one key, and I'll wake up and there's a row of S's, or a whole entire row of S's or T's or H's or whatever. Well, this guy fell asleep while his finger was on the to button. So instead of transferring 62.40 euros, he transferred 6,222,222,222.22 euros from one account to the other. The mistake was discovered and the error was corrected. Now, before we go to the phones, 888-589-8840, here's a commentary from a Czechoslovakian newspaper. And ladies and gentlemen, I just point this out to show you the links to which I'm willing to go to keep you informed. I am even willing to read editorials in papers in Czechoslovakia. Just kidding. Actually, a member of the staff here at FA brought this to me this morning, so I didn't do any research. I lied about that. I was just teasing you. Here's the quote. The danger to America is not Barack Obama. This is very, very important to understand this, because this is a pretty profound observation. The danger to America is not Barack Obama, but a citizenry capable of entrusting a man like him with the presidency. It will be far easier to limit and undo the follies of an Obama presidency than to restore the necessary common sense and good judgment to a depraved electorate willing to have such a man for their president. The problem is much deeper and far more serious than Mr. Obama, who is a mere symptom of what ails America. Blaming the Prince of Fools should not blind anyone to the vast confederacy of fools that made him their prince. The Republic can survive a Barack Obama, who is, after all, merely one fool. It is less likely to survive a multitude of fools such as those who made him their president. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Charles, Jacksonville, Florida. Charles, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
First of all, I want to say thank you for your show and what you do.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying so.
Something I've noticed people have yet to point out about this whole scandal is, well, Barack Obama is stating, he has stated several times, even during the Fort Hood shootings, during the Boston bombings, and all this other stuff, that terrorists don't exist anymore. Terrorist attacks don't happen. These aren't acts of terror aggression. Okay, well, that being said, you're justifying tapping phones to prevent terrorist attacks that you say no longer happen.
Well,
Either way you look at it, you're still lying.
Yeah. Well, that's a very, very good point, Charles. That's an excellent point that Charles is making here, because President Obama just cannot stop talking about the fact that he's taken out Osama bin Laden as if he fired the shots that took him out himself, that Al-Qaeda's been busted up, Al-Qaeda's on the run. Terrorist threats today are just these kind of isolated rogue lone wolf events all around the country. Nothing to see here. Move along. So that's what he wants to say on the one hand. And then Charles' point is, on the other hand, he's saying we've got to monitor every phone call in America. Why? Because we need to stop terrorism. All right, Charles, great observation, great point. Let's go to Kelly in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Kelly, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Well, Brian, I was listening to David Jeremiah this morning, and he was talking about when Christ came into Jerusalem, and he said that he wept over the city. And I just can't help but think that Christ must be weeping over America, what it's turned into. Mm-hmm. I mean, I called in to talk about just the phone calls and stuff about the NSA thing, but you've given so much more, adding to that. I mean, how much is enough till people just wake up? I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, just common, decent things, 50 years ago, and now everybody acts like everything is just, we've got to jump on the political correctness bandwagon now. And everybody's got to, we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to make anybody upset. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because they'll never get over it. My feelings get hurt all the time. I get over it. Why can't we just use some common sense?
Well, go ahead, Kelly.
I'm just going to say, as far as this NSA thing, that's just Illinois mafia politics at its best. Barack Obama he's a professional, Illinois politician.
Yeah, and I got to let you go, Kelly, because we're out of time, but I appreciate the call, and that's kind of where he learned it. I mean, Kelly's exactly right. This is just classical thug style Chicago politics. Now, Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be right back with more of your calls, more content. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.